Welcome everyone to our regular board meeting of the Nunda Township Board of Trustees for this evening, Thursday, October 11th, 2018. Meeting is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I have a roll call Bill?
Justin Bronski. Here. Rob Parrish.
Here.
Tim Parrish.
Here.
Karen Tynas. Here. Lee Jennings.
Here. Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to comment?
I will.
I just want to compliment, thank you, Mike, for the appropriation transfer that I see in the packet today. And I was wondering if someone, when you get to it, can explain what the exceeding 10% of the fund in that little statue means. I just wanna
Oh,
understand.
why it exceeds it?
No, the section 3 of that appropriation thing says about how you can do it within any fund, not exceeding 10% of the total amount appropriated in each fund. So I just want to understand what exactly that means.
No, now, or this is,
Yeah,
okay, so those are, the items listed in here are line items within the fund.
Right.
So the amount that can be transferred that way can't exceed 10% of the whole fund amount. So if the expenditures in a fund are $100,000 for the year, then the transfer can't exceed $10,000.
And is that a cumulative total or each transfer? Or each fund?
It would be for, let me think about this. Actually, it should say here, hold on a second, let's just look. Yeah, not exceeding 10% of the total amount appropriated, so that would be the total per fund.
Per fund for the entire fiscal year.
Right.
So your 100,000 would be in the
10,000
total
for the year.
for the year. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? No?
Will we be able to ask a question of waste management?
I'm sure. I'll open up the floor.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to number 5 on our agenda is the review and approval of our regular board meeting dated Thursday, September 13th, 2018. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 6 on our agenda is the township warrants for approval this evening in the amount of $17,021.58. Could I have a motion to approve? So moved. And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns on this? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Karen Tynas.
Yes.
Rob Parrish.
Yes.
Tim Parrish.
Yes.
Justin Bronski.
Yes.
Lee Jennings.
Yes, thank you, motion carries. Number 7 are the road district warrants for approval this evening in the amount of $147,561.90. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns here?
Hey Mike, you have 2 purchases on there. One, I think you bought the skid steer, 5 years, same as cash or pretty close to that.
It's one of them lease things, so they really don't give you an interest rate. But my reasoning for the finance deal is I wanna make sure that I don't go over in my line item. So my intention is to pay it off in the spring, right before the end of the fiscal year. I assume the money's gonna be there. I just don't wanna be that close.
Dependent on how bad the winter is.
Right.
The other purchase was a sandbagger. Was that a sewing machine or a sandbagger? 6,038.55.
It was just the bags.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just,
that was just.
That was the bags?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And do you buy those on an IDOT letting, or are those just a straight purchase, cause you gotta use the same type that the manufacturer
no,
needs for the unit?
the unit doesn't require special sandbags. The IDOT, price is more expensive than we pay.
Okay.
We have found that Sandbagger has the best price on sandbags. It's interesting, you'd think they'd be a convenience, thing, but they don't have the best price on everything, but they have the best price on sandbags. At least that's what they've been giving us.
Okay. Any other questions or comments here?
The A250 you spent on Heritage for the surveying for plat dedications, for all those roads, what was that for?
We're taking in, I believe it's about 2 miles of non-dedicated road. Most of them are off of Roberts Road, a bunch of dead ends. So we needed to create the plats of dedication, in order to do that.
Cause nothing ever existed, or nothing lined up, or?
No, well, it exists, but it didn't exist in a plat of, in a recordable form that we could legally take it. That's what it amounts to.
So you had to create that plat in
Right.
order to dedicate?
And many of these have happened in the last 5 years, but you wouldn't notice them because I didn't usually do 8 of them at one time.
Right,
But-
that's what I was looking at the number, I thought, well, you get a little volume discount there, it looked like,
Yeah.
it was just a lot of this.
Yeah, they, we had a lot of requests, for the non-dedicated. Well, it's monkey see, monkey do. Once you bring one in and you improve it, and you're plowing it, well, now they don't wanna keep having to plow their own road. So that's what's going on. But we're getting to the end of it.
Are these all like south of Porton?
Yeah. Yep. And then there's a few other, there's one that's north of Porton, and it would be by that, we call it Pez Road. It's where Jimmy Porton's place was, in front of that little bar.
Right where the cell tower is.
And there's only, it's a half a mile of road, there's only 2 Nunda houses on it. The road is in Nunda, and all of the rest of the residents, like 8 of them, are in Lake County. But nobody's ever, it's one of them tweeners, one of them things nobody wants to deal with. We're still negotiating, they don't wanna move their private property off the right-of-ways. So that one's, we're not gonna start plowing until they do move all their stuff.
Okay. Anything else?
You're real lucky in the amount of money you're paying for surface right now, that you got locked in annually, because the prices have gone up $6 to $7 a ton. In the private sector, we haven't been able to keep up with it, because there isn't enough escalation clauses in our contracts, and you're lucky they just have an annual with these
Yes.
asphalt plants.
Yes.
Because they're losing money on a lot of the stuff they're selling you, so you're very lucky in that point.
Geske raised our prices 3 times this year, but I just continued paying the price quoted. And then when they called, I explained to them how it works. We don't have a written contract, so they actually could raise our price, but they gave us the price.
Right, I forget, was it 10,000 ton? What was the number that you had for your FO?
We didn't give a tonnage this year.
You might wanna do that next year, because to live and learn this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're catching on to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you're right.
You're probably buying under cost right
So they don't like seeing us come in the yard.
now. That's all I got.
Okay. Anyone else? See none?
Yeah, I've got one question. The invoice for Joseph D. Foreman, or invoices, are those culverts and things of that nature? Okay, that's, the description, I was reading through the descriptions, and it was the idea I got, but I wasn't 100% there, yeah. Okay. Is that, for a season, or how often do you order those things?
We spend about 125 to 135,000 a year on new culverts.
Okay, so the invoices this month or batch are 40%
about,
or
yeah.
half of a year, okay.
That's all stuff that we went out to bid on.
Anyone else? All right, John, give us a roll.
Justin Franski,
Yes.
Rob Parrish,
Yes.
Tim Parrish,
Yes.
Karen Tinus,
Yes.
Lee Jennings,
Yes. Thank you, motion carries. Number 8 on our agenda is the review and approval of the road district transfer of appropriation from account 400.200.671 in the amount of $2,033.36 into account 400.120.620. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
Okay.
All right, any questions, comments here? All right, seeing none, Joni, roll call.
Tim Parrish,
Yes.
Karen Tinus,
Yes.
Justin Franski,
Yes.
Rob Parrish,
Yes.
Lee Jennings,
Yes. Thank you, motion carries. Number 9 is the review and approval of the intergovernmental agreement with McHenry Township Fire Protection District for the installation of the warning siren in Marine Hills in the amount of $6,450, and that would be the township's portion. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right. I do want to make note that after we had looked at it previously and talked about it, we did get them to go back to McHenry Township and get their portion of it, so we're not paying what they originally had asked for. So.
Well, originally, what was it, like 70? 400,
It was
something
almost
like that.
$8 grand,
Yeah.
7,800. So, you know, we were able to whittle it down a little bit. McHenry Township did bulk out of it all.
And all the maintenance and everything from now on is taken care of?
Yeah, we're not paying any maintenance on it, just the installation. And the IGA has been reflected, or been changed to reflect it, as opposed to the one in Holiday Hills, which we will be paying maintenance on.
Which we will be what?
Paying a small amount of maintenance,
Okay.
so when it gets updates, it'll come back to us. Any other discussion here?
What was the number again?
6450. And that pretty much saturates, I think, all of Nunda. I think that's the one part that's been missing. And that actually will be installed this year. They're looking at a November install date. Any further questions? Seeing none, Joni, give us a roll call.
Karen Tinus,
Yes.
Tim Parrish,
Yes.
Justin Franski,
Yes.
Rob Parrish,
Yes.
Lee Jennings,
Yes. Thank you, motion carries. Number 10 on our agenda, I have the people from Waste Management here to give us a presentation on their current carrier of solid waste. Vaughn, Kirschner, and Tom.
Well, I'm just handing stuff.
Oh, you're just saying this.
Easy, Jim.
Tom and Chris are my assistants. We're gonna be handing out several, pieces of material for you that we'll be reviewing, the information on.
Mike, do you want some?
Sure. You're welcome. No, I'm always looking for it. It's worked out that way. Thank you.
Well, first of all, good evening, board members and, residents of Nunda Township. Thank you for giving us the time today to meet with you and share a little bit about the services that we offer and some potential services that I'd like to introduce to you and share with you as we move forward. As I mentioned, with me tonight is Tom Sundstrom. Tom is our district manager for our district just down the road here on 31, just outside the city of McHenry, as well as Chris Alm. Chris is kind of the man on the street. He is our route manager that is in the township, daily, making sure everything runs smoothly. So thank you guys for joining me. So again, tonight what I'd like to do is just kind of review where we've been, what the services we have, and going forward. We service 4,148 homes in Nunda Township. The current contract expires at the end of April of next year. And in the contract, there is a term for 2 contract extensions up to 4 years at Nunda's sole discretion. So this is the sheet I'm going over in case you want to just follow along. So 4 years ago, Nunda Township entered into an agreement with Waste Management to provide waste removal services to its residents. During that time, we've really developed, I think, as a trusted service provider for the township. Our drivers know the community and its residents. In fact, I'm sure that some of the drivers know the resident's name, and the residents know the driver's name. Our drivers take pride in providing quality service to the township, the type of service the residents have come to expect now. In 2018, out of more than 400,000 services, so you gotta think of the refuse, recycle, and the yard waste, so three services each day that we provide in Nunda Township, there have been only 30 missed pickups. So you think about that, 30 into over 400,000, that's a fraction of a percent as far as missed pickups. So again, I just want to reemphasize the quality, reliable service that we provide to the township. The drivers that service the township are seasoned, experienced drivers. They have a lot of years of experience. In addition to the quality service, safety is equally important to both our employees and the communities we serve. The Waste Management McHenry District has not had an OSHA recordable accident in over 1,100 days. That's 3 years. And Tom and Chris and the team over there are very proud of it, as they well should be. Waste Management's McHenry District is located in Nunda Township, as I mentioned, just down the road here on Route 31. And the close proximity within the township allows us to respond very quickly to any issues that might arise. As part of the current contract, each resident received refuse and recycle carts. Carts provide numerous benefits to the community: cleanliness, ease of use, uniformity, safety. I'm sure you could think of some other things. Other services that are included in the current contract are, and again, as you look at this, the contract that you have for your residents, or services that you provide your residents, is really a nice package. But let's go over them real quick. You have multiple service levels. So a resident can choose different size carts, and the seniors also have an option, and these come at different prices. I would say a good portion of your residents are in the first one, which is Plan A. I think the actual number is over 3,500 of your residents are in that plan. You have unlimited yard waste. You have a yard waste cart rental option, so if you didn't like to put yard waste in bags and put it out, you could rent a cart if you'd like. You have curbside leaf bag, which is really a nice program. Instead of having the bag leaves or something like that, all you have to do is rake it into just on the curb, and we come by, I think a couple times each fall and vacuum up the leaves. We have a Christmas tree collection for the month of January. You have an annual document destruction day, which several of us have experienced. We've manned the event. It is used quite a bit. We have a robocall service, so if there is any weather or weather-related issues, or if there's a holiday coming up, call their and sent out to residents. You also offer a temporary suspension of service, so if someone was going down to Florida for several weeks each winter, they could suspend their service. We've had a local website that we developed specifically for Nunda Township that residents can use as well as the board, that you can go online and look at the services that are offered. So we feel that's really a good tool as well. You also have the brochures that were developed when we started the program. We have them right there on the table. We also have a mobile app that is available to residents. The phone is becoming the do-all for everybody. So there is a mobile app that residents can use to manage their account. There's also auto pay, and we always encourage residents to use auto pay. And it just takes makes things a lot easier. People can automatically pay and not have to worry about paying the bill. So those are the services that we currently provide, and again, like I said, I think it's a really nice package that we offer, or you offer the residents. If you flip over to the back side, some of the things, some potential additional changes as we look, to move into a new contract, or we'd like to look at that. A couple things that we'd like to propose. One is a Sharps kiosk, and that is this picture right here. I just wanted to share with you this picture. That's what a Sharps kiosk is. Diabetes is probably one of the fastest growing diseases in America, and of course that comes with having to give yourself shots many times. And there's other, of course, illnesses where you have to give yourself shots. So one of the things that we can provide the township is a Sharps kiosk to put either down here or up at the office for residents to use and dispose of their Sharps safely. We also looking to offer curbside household battery pickup. That's where residents can put their household batteries in a Ziploc bag, put it on a recycle cart, and we'll take it from there and recycle. Currently, you have a curbside electronics pickup, and we'll continue that, but we will reduce the cost for that from $40 to $30. The township, when we first started this program, had the drop-off. They no longer have the drop-off. So we want to promote that and encourage that some more. One of the things that we find is that TVs or electronics are often things that you see just dumped, because people just don't know where to get rid of it. So this is really a good service to offer. We also would like to offer the township a natural disaster debris. In other words, Waste Management will provide 250 free tons of natural disaster debris annually. So in case there's a tornado, heaven forbid, a flood, anything like that, you have 250 free tons each year. The only thing is the township is responsible for the transportation. And so all those things put together, one of the things that we're asking is if we could change the annual rate adjustment from its current CPI to the WST CPI, which is a water, sewer, trash CPI. This represents, like I said, the water, sewer, trash collection, and is widely accepted as an index that more reflects our industry. This change will allow Waste Management to better keep pace with our increases in operating costs. Currently, we've had a CPI with a floor of 2, and our labor alone has been at 2.4%. So hence, that's why we're requesting to move from CPI to WST CPI. Another service that I'd just like to share with you that if the township would be interested in is what's called our At Your Door Special Collection. And these two sheets, this sheet and this sheet, talk to that. What At Your Door is it's a household hazardous waste and electronics collection program. Very popular. We service over 180,000 homes in the Chicagoland area currently. And it is a very convenient, safe way to get rid of those materials that you may find hard to get rid of. If you think about your garage, your basement, your laundry room, your closets, all the stuff that's been sitting there for years, you now have a good way to get rid of it. And as the name of the program states, we come to your door. It's a unlimited program, so residents can call at limited times. And the neat thing about it too is that it does include electronics. And again, like I said earlier, electronics are those things that you often see being discarded alongside roads or in open lots. So if you, the one thing I want to point out too is on this brochure, it says 89%, if you see that. This is truly an extension of your recycling program. Last year, over 89% of the material that was collected through this program was recycled. And if you look on the backside, these are all the things that are included. Your automotive products, batteries, household chemicals, household items, like I said, electronics, mercury, paint products, both latex and oil. You can also include in there turpentine, chemicals, anything like that, sharps. So if the township was interested in going with this program, there's a monthly charge for each resident, and it's $1.35 per home per month. All residents participate. But if you have experience taking a TV, just one TV, to a drop-off center or something, typically you're paying $30 to $35 just to get rid of one TV. If you take $1.35 and project it out annually, it comes to $16.20. So half of what you pay for one TV. And this program not only includes electronics, but also includes your household hazardous waste. The other sheet I'd like to share with you is just a testimonial. One of the communities we service, and the mayor of Plainfield, I think it is, I apologize, yes, Plainfield, Mayor of Plainfield said it was one of the best programs, or the best program that they have implemented. And like I said earlier, we service over 180,000 communities. Genoa has it, Sycamore has it, Plainfield, Joliet, Lombard, Westchester, Wakanda, Oak Park, Berwyn, Evergreen Park, just numerous communities. And I would say that all the responses we get back, 99.9% are satisfied, very satisfied. They're saying, what took so long? This is an awesome program. Great way to get rid of electronics and so forth. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you. And the other thing I wanted to share with you that whatever you decide is recycling education. Recycling education is so important right now. Not that it wasn't before, but if you've watched the news or kept track of what's happening in China and other areas, China was the largest importer of recycled material from, the U.S. and other countries. They were taking anywhere from 30 to 50% of the U.S. material. Well, earlier this year, China said enough. And the reason they said enough is because the contamination level was so high. They now will only accept material that's 0.5% contamination. So you think about that, think about your recycling cart. If you have less than 0.5% contamination there, that's really, really a hard number to get to. But we need to do it because recycling is the right thing to do. But education is so important. As you look on the sheet, nearly 26% of the people recycling items despite being unsure if they are recyclable. In other words, they'll look at an item and say, I'm not sure, but the processor will take care of it. That's the kind of mentality we got to change because we can't take care of it. Things have changed so much. Not only has the material that we've collected changed, the packaging has changed, the amounts of material, there's less newspaper and more plastics, processing has changed, and now the end markets have changed. So there's a lot of education that we need to provide. And they say that it's no surprise that 16% of the loads entering our recycling or any recycling plant are contaminated. When something is shipped to the end market, the first test that they do is a sniff test. So they'll open the door of the cargo container, and put their nose in there. If it smells like garbage, guess what? Doors are shut and it comes back. So this is so important right now, that, you know, this is something that we share, and I think I handed out, yeah, this brochure, I think I got everybody this brochure. This is a program that we've introduced a little over a year, probably 2 years ago now, called Recycle Off and Recycle Right. It's an education program. We share it not only with our communities, but other communities as well. And just to give you an example, how dire things are, the city of Kankakee, one of our competitors went into the board and said, we're not having curbside recycling anymore, we're stopping it. They had over 60% contamination, and it wasn't improving. And they said, we can't do it. Said, we'll give you drop off, and if that doesn't work, then there'll be no recycling. So it's not just waste management, it's all haulers, all recycling process, et cetera. It's a world issue. The recycling market has changed so much, it's really been turned upside down. So that's why I really wanted to spend a little bit of time with you on this and how important this is, and this is something that we would, you know, work with the township to educate the residents. So with that, I threw a lot of information out at you. Hopefully you were able to gather some, but again, like I said, I have Tom and Chris here with myself, and be happy to answer any questions for you.
And I'd say we open up questions to anyone.
I'll start. What is, in your current services for the one you most use, the 3,500 residents, what does that cost them annually?
That costs them $21 a month. So projected out, I'm not sure, Mr. Parrish, what that projects out to, but Plan A is $21 a month, and that's the one that has about 3,500 residents in it.
Okay. And then how many times per season do you do your curb leaf pickup?
I think it's 3 times, right, Chris? 3 times.
What do you believe the valuation per home that is?
Well,
The reason I ask is, as a Crystal Lake resident, it's not available through us.
Right.
And, I mean, I rake 150 bags a year, it's a week. I'm just curious.
It's right around about $1.20 per home per month.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And then on your auto pay, is there any discounts to the residents to set up an auto pay? Is there any discount to their monthly bill?
You know, I think there is, and I'm not sure, I apologize, I
Okay,
don't have
I'm
that
just
full
curious.
information, but I think there is.
Right, and then what about seniors? Is there a discount to the seniors?
Yes, actually, if, for C and D, those are only senior-only plans.
Okay,
And they cost the same amount, but the seniors get a choice of, you can see the different size cards. And that's
It's reduced.
$18.04 a month.
It's reduced from the full amount, but
right.
there are two options.
But they must call in to specifically request that discount. Also about the vacation,
Yes.
can that be done on this website that you created for Nunda Township, or is that something that they have to call in?
That's something you have to call in right now. I mean, that is really a good point. That's something I'll have to look into. I'll take that point back. That'd be something that'd be nice to include on
The vacation is, they can have up to 4 months of a vacation. So you
4
don't-
months?
I think it was 4 weeks.
No, 4 months, buddy.
Well, yeah, cause what if there's snowbirds?
Yeah, it's 4 months.
It is
Yeah,
4
it's 4
months?
months.
Okay, thank you.
So that means that the carts still stay with them, they don't get charged for anything in 4 months. When they call back in, they resume service.
Yes, you're right, there is my notes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
with regard to the contaminated recycling, have there been any studies, or do you have any figures regarding, what percentage of that is, people not knowing, it's ignorance or laziness and people don't care?
I think it's all of the above.
Well, I was gonna say, have these ever been included in the mailing of the bill?
Probably not. They are available at the township office, but one of the things, you know, to your point is, we just did a audit for Nunda Township, and you're right around 20% contamination. Might seem high, but I've seen other communities higher. That's why it's so important to, you know, share this information, you know, with the residents. But you mentioned three different things. You know, people, there's actually three different groups. There's the Show Me, there's another group, and I forget the name of it, and then there's the Make Me. And you're always gonna have this small group of Make Me's that, you know, you gotta drag kicking and screaming to do it. But if you can get to those first two groups, you know, you're gonna have success. Probably the biggest contaminant we see, and guys, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, is plastic bags. If we could get the plastic bags out of the recycling stream, it'd be awesome. It'd be a huge win. Not only just plastic bags that people throw in loose, but plastic bag recyclables. We just can't take them because the bags wrap around the processing equipment and literally will shut it down. At our MRF material recovery facility in Grays Lake, they have 3 breaks during each shift. Each break, the guy's got to get on the processing equipment with knives, cutting off the bags. And if they didn't, the equipment would shut down. Probably the next biggest thing is food and liquid. Believe it or not, that's the second biggest contaminant. And like I said, the first thing that guys do when they import material, open the doors, and if it smells like garbage. I was at a site in Elgin, we call it the city of Elgin, working with a customer, and he was struggling with this residence. It was a small multi-family, and I said, come over to the recycling bin here. It was empty, but I lifted the lid and I go, take a smell. What does it smell like? It smells like garbage. I said, guess what's being put in there? Garbage. You know, food waste.
So if you were to go to this site, Recycle Up and Recycle Right, there's videos or tutorials on there.
Yeah, there's lots of, there is so much educational material in here, it's unbelievable. And I encourage you to go in there because I was talking with Lee earlier, there's Facebook posts, there's Twitter posts, you know, so many things that can be used to help educate the residents. Some of the things too I thought of is at our document destruction, they have material to hand out to each person that comes in. At your
That would
event,
be
right, at your
awesome.
event each summer, the Touch a Truck, or whatever you call it, I know we've had this type of material out there when we've been there. So it's just getting out to those events, you know, and talking to residents and making sure they understand.
Have you ever considered putting any kind of stickers or something on the inside lids of the recycling bins?
Actually, first part is education, second part is education at the curb.
Yeah,
And we actually have, and I don't think I brought,
because I know like in our subdivision, people that put plastic bags, sometimes the drivers will actually put a sticker on it that says, please, no plastic bag. I would say the majority of people probably do not even know you can't put a plastic bag in there.
well, we and other haulers, it's been allowed for so long, but again, the processing has changed, it's become more automated, so the plastic bags are now an issue. So education is so important, but it's not gonna happen overnight. It's
Yeah, but I mean,
continual
everybody
consistent
has to
messaging.
lift that lid to put it in.
But to your point, the tagging, actually with this program, we do have cart hangers that we would start using, you know, in the township. And it's been very effective in Elgin where we piloted the program. Again, this is a national program. Elgin was one of the pilots. They reduced their contamination from 40% down to under 20% in just over a couple of years. So, a couple of years, it takes time. But again, it's important.
Now, I wanted to emphasize, in case anyone didn't catch it, the at-the-home service that you said
Yes.
could be put on for an additional cost. That's all residents or none. It's not a,
Right, you can't.
it's not a, you know.
And the reason for that, again,
Oh,
is we're able to, all the residents participate so we can keep that rate cheaper. As I mentioned, if you annualize it, it's only $16.20.
66,000 a year though, if you multiply it
Right.
times all the residents. Yeah.
What's being recycled now?
That's what I was
What
gonna ask.
can you drop off at in your,
And what is the cost of it?
Electronics minus televisions and monitors, paint, no chemicals.
no chemicals?
Um,
So if we voted for this, but with that, you have to call in.
You call it, yes.
You call it.
Yep, and we come, it's unlimited.
But then when we eliminate what we have, what we,
Well, it would be wonderful if you eliminated the paint recycling. It is a nightmare.
How
We
much,
take,
well, yeah, cause you go over a lot.
oh my gosh, we take thousands and thousands of gallons of paint.
But now bear in
Hundreds
mind,
of 55-gallon barrels.
bear in mind, our contract covers 1/4 of the township. A lot of
Right.
other people use.
We still have all this, the urban people, all the
Correct.
city dwellers, right?
And, you know, when you talk about contamination, I know I went down there a week or so to get I needed a piece of cardboard. And you know, I spent 5 minutes looking for a flat piece of cardboard where there was, you know, all kinds of things. There was a rug thrown in there, and there was this thrown in there, and that thrown in there. And I'm like, or there were boxes where they didn't break them down,
Right.
so.
how much does the township have to pay to dispose of that stuff then? So how much money would you be saving and each person would be paying?
Well,
I don't know how you'd eliminate it.
Yeah,
How
we
could
can't
This
eliminate
is
it.
only the urban, I mean, this is the rural people.
this is the
that-
unincorporated,
Well,
Because
garbage
if,
service.
because if there was nowhere else to do it, maybe people that lived in the
so
city of
like,
Crystal
for
Lake
instance,
would pay
you
the
and
city of Crystal
Rob would
Lake to-
pay this,
That was,
you,
You could,
you could,
theoretically, yeah.
theoretically, you, because you're still a resident. And I guess then you would have the option to use the in-home service, but you could also still bring, right?
is
Uh,
that-
you'd have-
How would you do that? I mean, we have, the chosen one is Prairie Land in Crystal Lake.
So you wouldn't be able to use it then
Right.
if you're in the city
Correct.
limits? Yeah.
Kind of groovy.
So, but they would have to pay for it.
No,
I don't think we can use it
it
at all.
would be, it's
Yeah.
only available to the
pay
4,100
those types of
residents in
services
Nunda
for-
Township.
But I'm saying, but again, it gets added to every single non.
All those
It's
40,
not-
no, there's
Those
those
40.
4,100 that we service.
Okay,
So,
got it.
you know, if you live in Crystal Lake, you have a different hauler,
So it
even though it's
wouldn't
Nunda
really
Township.
It would certainly lessen the amount of recycling that would come here.
No, not at all.
But if it was still
This is also,
available
you're
here,
putting
don't
this
you think
burden on
people
the
might
person.
still do it here?
You're saying, you know what? you have
Well,
the
I
choice.
think if it's available at their house and
Yeah.
they're paying money for it, they'll use it.
If you could guarantee.
I'm kind of on the fence on this because I think, they might use it for those first couple of TVs, and then maybe they go, well, now, is it worth it to me?
Yeah, but what about the things you don't take?
Well, that's,
Used oil and all that.
right, I mean, that's,
That you take and that's a price tag.
and that's where I'm on the fence. Is it worth the additional cost for everyone? Some people are
How
gonna.
much, Mike, do you think you spend
Yeah.
to get rid of the stuff you do recycle?
Any ideas of your costs, Mike? I know it depends a lot on how contaminated the,
We spend at least 10 hours a week working on recycling, so that's $1,000 a week in labor. If you add benefits and blah, blah, so, 50 grand a year plus our recycling budget is 7,000. So 50 to 60,000 a year is what we spend. We're not gonna eliminate the need for our recycling program, but we might, once this program, if you were to implement it, we might could save, 20% or
well, it's,
something.
we have approximately 1/4 of the township on this contract. So let's say you could, if that at-door service was successful and everyone was using it, you might see up to 25% reduction in your costs. Potentially.
There's some, the chemicals are a big deal for the residents of Nunda Township, both urban and rural. We turn people away every day with chemicals. You gotta take them to Rockford or down by O'Hare, or use them as the directions say. We don't have an answer for chemicals.
And paint is that's your biggest one.
That's our nemesis.
And one thing also to keep in mind, a program like this, also I think is really a safeguard for your water supply. forbid if things are being dumped. Hopefully they're not, but, you know, we've heard of that, you know, that type of thing happening, so.
I have a question. If the board was to approve this program, could you, we do get chemicals, because as we've been discussing, people discard things wherever
They just dump it.
you got the, what did you call them? The make-me's?
That'd make me.
Yeah, well, the make-me's, they drop off everything. So we, you know, we have to deal with that stuff all the time. We have to use it. So
Oh,
can you
you're-
guys take the stuff that we get from the make-me's?
That's a good question. The program is specifically set up for the residents, but I'm sure there's something, Mike, we could work out, so.
We'll trade you 2 natural disaster degrees.
I like that. I like that.
Well, and I do have to say, you know, when we've had flooding in the past, and I think Michael will agree here, that you guys have taken a lot of our sandbags and have charged us for it. And I do appreciate that. Because God, it seems like every year now we're flooding.
Every quarter.
Every
What
quarter,
would happen
couple
if
times.
Nunda didn't offer the recycling anymore? If the township didn't? I mean, to save that money, who
Well-
would be doing it? I know the county does it, correct?
Or maybe go down to the.
Would it force,
county.
would it force people that live in municipalities to get their municipalities to do it if there was no
Well-
place to take it?
I don't know if you'd say it could force them, their residents might request it, but I think people would go back to dumping more of it on the roads. And that, I don't, Mike could probably attest to how much.
It just
see
seems
much
people
Well, even
have-
if like Crystal Lake did, you, say Crystal Lake, I wouldn't be able to drop off there, cause I'm
No,
unincorporated.
if they did the program like.
If they did a similar program.
I mean, if there wasn't a place to take it, other people would have to.
Well, right now, most of them are in contracts that wouldn't include anything like that, so there'd be a long cycle in between being able to even offer something like that. But I think, to me,
Or you dig a hole, okay, or
I didn't hear that.
We make changes in the recycle program and the residents flip. If you eliminated it, they would
Freak out.
converge.
right.
Yeah, they would all be in here,
Mhm.
yes.
And it's hard to control the recycling. I know it is.
Yeah, you just have to deal with it,
Right.
just like you have to deal with your contamination.
I would say if you eliminated it today,
Mhm.
you'll still have people dropping stuff off for the next 2 or 3 years,
Oh, sure.
and without a container there for it. And, you'll never eliminate that. People are like mice, trained mice, they just keep going to the same spot and drop stuff off.
Does that the door take tires as well?
No,
No, it
tires
doesn't.
and medication are 2 of the
Okay,
things that they do not take.
because we do take tires.
You do?
Not from businesses.
No, no, I think they keep those when I go bring those in. But I'll come
Bill?
get one for a swing.
Well, I don't wanna rain on your parade here, but I found it ironic that today's paper was a full column on this subject.
Really?
As far as the contaminated, recyclables. So it listed quite a few, communities that they've done away with, basically because they're losing money. For, I believe it was, if I could find it here, they were taking in paper, and it was, ended up costing them $15 or whatever, 100 tons or whatever, so they were losing money on the whole process, they just eliminated it. I guess my question comes to you is that, should you get to the point that you are going to eliminate recycling from this, will that reduce the fee, your $21 should effectively go down because you're not offering recycling anymore?
Well, I don't think I ever talked about eliminating recycling.
I'm just
I mean,
saying,
recycle-
the way this article is written, it tends to lead you to believe that in the future, more and more companies will be eliminating it because it's not profitable anymore.
Understood. Recycling is a core service that we offer, and as I mentioned earlier, it's the right thing to do. I mean, if you can recycle something, that's what it's about. And that's what we as a company, you know, promote, is recycling. What's happening, what's driving that article, as well as the other ones like down in Kankakee, there was a Channel 5 news article about a month ago, you know, talking about some of the, you know, stuff in the presentation I just gave, is the contamination. And it's just gotten to a point that we just can't accept it anymore. And like I said, the Kankakee is a perfect example. The residents have to change their behavior. And they can do that through education. And one of the things we found in Elgin is Facebook was a great tool. I don't know if, you know, the township does a lot of Facebooking, but in Elgin, they got a Facebook page, and it was interesting to watch that residents started policing each other. And so not only do we and the township need to work together, but residents have to, you know, work together and help educate each other. Because that's the only way this is going to change. If it doesn't change, yeah, there may be some, you know, I guess consequences, if you want to say it. But that's not what we want, and I know that's not what the township wants or the residents want. So what has to happen? We got to work together.
Let me expound on this question a little bit. If you take a company like Waste Management, and you take a company like Prairie Land. Prairie Land puts all the same stuff in the same truck. You have contamination then, okay? You, on the other hand, put it in separate trucks. A little probably less contamination. How does Prairie Land perform their job and not have contaminated things? So it doesn't make sense to me. How do they do that and get away? Are they, you know, to me it's a contaminating thing to mix it all together and then come back and separate it. It's contaminated. So how do they do it? Are their trucks different than your trucks? You know, is their process different than your process? How is it happening? I don't see.
Yeah, I can't speak to how they operate. I will say that their trucks are different in that half their truck or 2/3 of their truck may be garbage and 1/4 may be recycling. So it's definitely different than what we do, because we have 2 separate trucks going by, so we keep stuff clean.
Again, I'm not stumping for them, but I get this question all the time. What makes them different than you? And the biggest complaint when it comes to waste management is the increases in cost. You guys, you're gonna take your 2%. You're gonna take your 2% because it's allotted to you. Now you're asking for more. And then you're asking for more on top of that, another $1.50, whatever it was per the 4,100 customers. You do that, it just turns everybody against you. Mind you, I understand you have to make money, but people don't understand it's just garbage. You know, it's just garbage. Why? You know, I had Marengo for years. I never had an increase. Switched to, we had waste management, increase after increase after increase. Finally, my better half decided, well, we're not gonna continually increase. They're offering it for less money. So people shop around. We're not allowed to do that in Nunda Township anymore. And so we're for the board, think about what you're doing. You are the ones okaying the increase. If you, if you go and take this new product, you're increasing everybody's thing up on top of the other increase. I don't think you're getting just a $2 increase, you're getting a $4 increase, which turns everybody off. They're just tired of the increase.
But Bill,
Albeit it's garbage.
But Bill, did when it turned to $21 a month, you were not paying $21 a month to Prairie Land at that time. You got quite a decrease when it went to the 20.
For some. For some people.
I was paying $108 every 3 months instead of 67.
I think one of the things you
Yeah,
gotta
I
look
had
at,
to
sir, is that, I think what you're talking about too is what's called subscription service versus now you're talking about a community or municipal contract where the prices are set, the increases are set, you know, everybody knows what's gonna happen each year. You know that, you're gonna get anywhere from, you know, CPI, anywhere from a 2 to whatever percent. There's a limit on what we have right now in the current contract, I think it's 5%.
Well, and also the Nunda Township roads, we had 4 garbage trucks
That's what I was
coming
gonna
in
say,
the roads.
and yeah, that's what we had.
I mean, so there's invisible costs in addition to the $21 that you're saving.
Well, and the other thing is the leak vacuuming added in that and the yard waste added. If the yard waste, when I was doing these contracts, I polled a lot of residents. Most people, if they did have yard waste, they were paying between $250 and $300 just for the yard waste. So that's kind of a bonus. In my perspective, the leaf vacuuming is a bonus and really a necessity.
And was there an increase? Wasn't this a current how many year contract?
It's a 4-year contract.
So did it increase in those 4 years?
Yes, we allow between 2% and 5%
Okay, each year.
based
Okay.
on CPI.
Okay.
And that's, in any municipal contract, you see that. There is an annual price adjuster, in those municipal contracts. If there was a contract out there that was at 0%, I would like to see it, because on a municipal level, on a municipal contract, I've never seen that. Now, it might be different, like I said, on a subscription basis, where there is no contract, you could use anybody you want. So that's a little different animal than what we're talking about here.
Again, but the focus back then, because I was on the board when we brought your contract in. Back then, we had, in my subdivision alone, we had 4 different carriers. So it was kind of nice, and it was all week long. You know, you went, every day there was a service in the neighborhood, some twice a week. So it was a blessing to get one service, 1 day a week, and that was great. But the only thing I ever heard was, but they increased the price, but they increased the price. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. We knew that going in that there was gonna be an increase. So I'm not denying the increase, I'm just finding it hard to tell people in my neighborhood, now we're gonna add something else on top of the increase.
Well, that's if, again, I think it's an awesome program. I mean, I wouldn't have brought it up to you guys if I didn't, because it's I think it's very valuable for a community, but that's up to the board's discretion. I think it'd be a great add-on to your services that you offer your residents. But as far as the increases, sir, again, they're stipulated in the contract, and that we abide by that. So, and that's annual, it's no more than just once a year.
And again, the other part would have been, to me, is I see the recycling bins pushed out. I push mine out weekly. Some of my neighbors, they don't push them out. It takes them 3 weeks to fill it. So they're not really good and active users of that service. My question is, should we pare down the recycling to get people to pay attention? Okay, they're only coming every other week. Okay, we need to draw focus to what you want in those bins, not just fill it up because the garbage is filled up. You know, oh, this one's half empty, let's fill that up. I mean, I see the attitude. My son, my daughter, they walk by and they just throw anything in there. I'm out there picking cans out.
Usually it's the other way around.
Well, well, again, I'm looking at it, you know, and they don't care. They, you know, they're drinking beer in the garage. They don't care what one it goes in.
Convenience,
You know.
convenience.
Again, I would say I'm a conscious person when it comes to it, but, you know, I also have to see who else is using it.
Sure.
But my thing is, paring down your costs, do we need to run those trucks through, those recycling trucks? Do we need to run them through every week? Can they run through every 2 weeks?
No, I.
The same with lawn waste. Why do we need to run them, you know, why do we need to run them every week versus every 2 weeks? You know,
Well,
slow down your service.
In general, the general comment from most people, Bill, to me at least, is that they do more recycling now than they do garbage. Many people say,
I
you know.
don't deny that.
And there's a lot of people that 4 years ago didn't even have recycling because if it cost extra on the bill, they weren't paying for it. So here we've kind of gone from this where a big portion didn't have recycling. Now that we've got them all recycling, now we've got to teach them how to recycle properly.
Right, but
So-
how are you gonna get their attention? That's what I'm trying to get their attention.
Well, one of the things that we've done in other communities is we put flyers on the carts, our drivers will leave a flyer on the cart. I talked about the curbside education, and I tell you, once we start a curbside education, that definitely gets their attention, because typically how we roll out a curbside education program with these cart hangers is we'll give them 4 weeks where we'll tag and take. So in other words, we'll identify on the tag, plastic bags, food, whatever, but we'll still take it. We call it an education period. But after those 4 weeks, then we start tagging and leaving. And we still mark what it is, and we ask them to clean it up before we come back the next week and then pick it up. So once that starts, that tag and leave, that's when, you know, the education really hits home.
Are you only tagging the recycle carts? Or are you tagging actual, so say you tag somebody's recycle cart and they hit their 4th week, now you're not gonna pick it up. There's really nothing to stop them from opening the regular garbage can and dumping that all in. So
That's effectively what they're doing anyway.
right, I mean, so the tag is specifically for the recycle cart, okay.
What is the difference in cost if there's 20% contamination versus, say, 10% or 40% contamination in the recycling?
Well, right now,
So-
your monthly cost is what it is, but
I'm not talking about our monthly cost, because we negotiate a contract and that's the monthly cost, but I thought of this before, and then somebody said something about, you know, if you get the neighbors to kind of police each other, and, you know, I think that there's an environmental cost to doing or not doing the right thing, but as a company for waste management, if 2 townships are exactly the same, one has 20% contamination, the other has 40% contamination, there's a reason for me asking this question. You may not know the answer to that right offhand, but there's a large cost to waste management as the service provider. Maybe an answer is to incentivize it. I mean, they got all these gizmos you plug in your car, and if you drive like a jerk, you're gonna pay more, and if you drive nice, you'll pay less. So if we're incentivizing, educating and incentivizing, so we're, for whatever, last year was 20% contamination. If it goes down, maybe you guys hold the line on the price. And if the contamination stays the same, you get 2%. If the contamination goes up, maybe you get an extra percent or something. I don't know that that's the exact way to handle it, but does that make sense? Has anything like that been tried?
no, I hear what you're saying, but that really has not,
Probably be hard to gauge.
not been tried. It's, ideally, we wanna be as low as possible. And there are costs, definitely. The more contamination, the more it costs us to recycle. So that's why I came tonight, and I've gone to my other communities and talked to the boards as well, saying, hey, we gotta get the contamination down. Otherwise, like I said earlier, when the gentleman back there and I were talking, there may be consequences down the line if things don't change. Again, the Kankakee example, that was very extreme, but, you know, that's what things are looking like, you know, in the recycle industry.
Are there, the current services that we have, we only have 4 service levels?
Correct. And actually, that's pretty good, because most of the time in your municipal contracts, you have 1, maybe 2. So the way you've set this up is pretty good, so.
I have a question for you, Chris, and or Tom. I don't know if that makes a difference, but in the order of a truck, that the trucks go out, is there usually garbage first, then recycling, do they even go on
We run them separately, so they're not bumping into each other.
Okay.
So one starts at one side of the neighborhood, and the other starts at
Because,
The
I mean,
other side,
I'm
so-
thinking myself, if the.
Mine are really close in time
Are
to
they?
each other.
Right.
Must be
And,
great to
and I
see.
mean, hear me out for a second.
They're
If your
consistent.
recycling guy went down first, and he's obviously seeing if the carts are contaminated, he's seeing bad stuff in it, would it make sense for him, rather than taking the contamination or leaving it per se? It's sitting there and it's garbage. It's really not recyclable. Could he tag it for the garbage truck to come through behind them and then say, oh, there's a tag on the recycling, I'm gonna take it as garbage?
That would be ideal. And I'll
I'm just throwing
No,
that
that's-
out.
That would be ideal. Problem
Yeah.
is, then, the resident doesn't learn.
Right, but it's, you could still tag it saying we took it, but do this next
But
time.
again, if you want people to learn,
Yeah, you don't pick it up.
Right.
you have to
Right,
give
I
them
get
some
that.
pain. I
But I'm
mean,
trying to think of a way that you
Right, I
guys
understand
could-
what you're saying.
could lessen your contamination.
I mean, logically, as far as our company, that'd be great.
Yeah,
But again, you're not letting them learn. And the only way, again, people, we found again in Elgin, as soon as we started that tag and leave,
yeah, to change their
it's
ways.
changed a lot of people's behaviors.
Okay.
And I think that's what you gotta do, because as we mentioned before, convenience, don't care, oh, the processor will take care of it, you know? If, like I said earlier, plastic bags are huge, if we got that win. The other thing I always tell a group is, if you even have to think about what you're gonna throw out, put it in the garbage. All we're getting back to, and not just Waste Management, any haulers, we're trying to get back to the basics. Bottles, cans, paper, cardboard. No food or liquids, no plastic bags, that's it. No toys, no hoses, no, what other things do we see? Propane tanks, you know, just clothes,
Styrofoam.
styrofoam.
Uh-huh.
That's a big one.
We see a lot of clothes too. I mean, clothes, take them to the Goodwill or whatever. People just think, well, yeah, it's plastic, or a lawn chair. Someone talked about, asked me about an aluminum lawn chair today. Probably recyclable, but not in your curbside program. So it's just, things have just gotten, we gotta dial it back in.
Okay.
Would you be willing to offer a contract that is not tied to WST?
We have really, based on the current contract, we have not been able to keep up with our costs, trust me.
I understand that.
You know, so
I'm sure you're aware of the thing that Lee gave us here that talks about the latest projections out there. The 10-year average goes up 50% as opposed to the CPI goes up 20%.
Rob, actually, I had been thinking about that too when I found that article. And I talked to Scott, and maybe Jim, I don't know how many municipal contracts like this you do. But Scott said that while some do the CPI WST, or most of them do it the way that we have done it, with CPI, and give it a range. But many go to just a flat rate, just a percentage. And I was thinking that we might find something there so that we can have a better
Understanding
understanding of
going
where it's
forward.
gonna go.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
in 4
and I-
years when we follow WST, who knows what happens then?
And I would ask that if the improvements that that Vaughn outlined, and CPI right now has been a little under 2%, so every year we've had a 2% bump. I was thinking, in all fairness, with these additions, 3% flat every year might be a reasonable.
But the biggest addition is costing everyone 16, 20 a year.
I'm sorry.
Additions. The biggest addition changes to people's potential contract is the fact that they could have the at-your-door service for 16,
Well,
20 a year.
I wasn't even talking about this.
Okay.
The at the door is on top of everything.
Right.
That's either we make a decision to add it or not add it. But if we went, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, is that something that, I don't know, talking to maybe you, Vaughn, rather than going to a different CPI, just going flat at like a 3%?
Of course, ideally, we'd like the WST 3%. I think I heard Trustee Parrish say that, you know, with this fixed percentage. It does give you some benefits. Both parties then know exactly where they're at each year. I could take it back and talk to my manager. I would think he probably would go along with 3%. Yes.
I didn't say 3%.
Oh, I know.
What's that? I didn't hear you.
I didn't say 3%, you said.
No, I said 3%. I was just throwing out.
No, it makes it easier to swallow a 4-year contract then, you know, looking ahead.
Right, yeah.
You can budget better.
Yes.
Yeah, cause we're gonna decide on something here and dump it on the residents for 4 years,
Right.
you know.
I'd
I mean,
rather
your
not think
core-
of it like
right.
dumping it.
Your
but-
core
Well, it's
service,
just they have to go with what you
Right.
choose.
your core services, of course, again, are all staying the same. We're trying to add some additional or enhancements. And then, like I said, we're asking for a change in the PI. And then, as we talked about, the at your door is a separate decision.
Right, it's additional
Right.
to the contract.
Okay.
I got one question for you.
Yes.
I want you to back up. 4 years ago, were you involved in the original negotiations with the board?
Yes.
For this contract? How did that come about? Was that something that you basically educated us all, brought it to the table? Obviously, I wasn't here, a couple other people weren't here, Mr. Bowles was here. Was that just Waste Management exclusive privilege to Nunda Township, and that arrangement all came about, or how?
No.
Can I take a moment? I put together an RFQ, which was 34 pages, and I had some very specific questions and very specific requests of our garbage carriers. I did that after reading about a dozen other contracts and RFQs. And I took the best pieces and parts of every single one of them and put them all together in ours. And then I called all the garbage carriers that were serviced this area at all. There was 8 total. And I got in contact with them and I sent them the RFQs. Of those, 5 of them attended a pre-bid meeting. Of the 5 that attended the pre-bid meeting, 4 bid on the contract. The pre-bid meeting, actually some changes came about in the request for proposal, and my original request for proposal, and you have to remember, I'm not a garbage guy. I don't know their business. So my thinking was let everybody do an a la carte service, saying, I want a big garbage can, I want a little recycling can, I want this, I want that. All 5 of the companies that came to the pre-bid meeting said, our accounting systems cannot handle that. They all said that. So we sat there and said, okay, well, we need to have some options. We're gonna have a senior discount. I was adamant about that. So all together as a group, all 5 of those companies and ourselves, Scott Puma was there, and Tom Palmer was integral in helping us. We sat there and we came up with what made sense for the plans and what they saw the biggest need for. And that's, we made an addendum to the RFQ, and then we had the 4 companies bid on it. So, basically, we were trying to make sure everybody was giving us apples for apples. Of the 4 companies that bid on it, I can tell you that Prairie Land and Lakes, I'll tell you, that was Group, Prairie Land, Lakes, and Waste Management. Prairie Land and Lakes did not even complete the RFQ, not even close. I mean, they answered very few questions on there. Waste Management Group did a pretty good job of answering all of the questions in the RFQ. Waste Management, to their credit, actually answered every single question so detailed that that RFQ became our contract once the board voted on it. And Waste Management was the less expensive at that time. So sorry, not a good answer.
Oh, you're good. Out of all the municipalities that you guys deal with, how often are you entering into competitive bidding before you enter into contract, percentage-wise?
You mean with our current customers?
Yes.
I'm just thinking back this past year on my contracts, I'd probably say less than half that I've gone into competitive bidding for. think our service speaks for itself. As I mentioned earlier about our service, I think our safety speaks for itself. And I think we really tried to become a trusted partner, with the municipality.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions for Vaughn?
We're gonna discuss, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go on to our own discussion. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, number 11 on our agenda is the discussion and approval of the extension of the solid waste contract. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Let me start off by saying I think Waste Management has done a good job for us. We've ironed out any details that we've come across, any issues. And when we started this 4 years ago, we had no contract. So some of those issues were education related, some of them were flat out. We got a lot of calls because some people were like, I don't want to be under a contract. I don't want anybody telling me who's going to do this or that. So that was a big discussion and a big issue for people. Some people quite honestly, didn't like Waste Management. Maybe they had them in the past, or they wanted to keep their own vendor. So there were all those concerns. And I have to say that once we got through the first, and I'm gonna say even the second billing cycle, where we got most of the issues ironed out regarding what carts did they get, what their billing was. We got a address list from the county. That's the only way we could get it. And it was a terrible list. I spent probably 2 weeks alone just going through that list before I could even give it out to Waste Management. And it was a terrible list. It had instead of people's home addresses that had their trusts. So the garbage bill would go to the bank, to the trust. We had to sort through a lot of that. But we made it through that. And what happened is in the beginning of the second billing cycle, we started getting a lot of calls that were very positive in nature, and it was saying how wonderful it is that they're saving so much money and don't have so many cars coming down the road. It's also taken an education process to decide how to do the leaf vacuuming. That's an ongoing process. Working together with Waste Management, we came up with the concept of splitting the township down the middle via Route 31, and it's pretty close to 50%. Well, not entirely, but pretty close. And that's worked really well. So it's been a symbiotic relationship, and it's been a good relationship. They've been very responsive to all my calls and my needs, and obviously all my calls and needs are resident related. I'd have to say if there were any people that are complaining now, they are people that predominantly don't pay their bills. And they're complaining about, well, they cut off my service. You haven't paid your bill. I try not to get involved in those, but we've made concessions with some people to get them back on track. And some of that relates to, hey, you haven't paid your bill, we'll resume service without any fees, but you gotta go on auto pay. You know, you can't keep getting some sort of a break for not doing it. But working with both Vaughn for those, billing related issues, and with Chris for any other related issues, we've really worked things out, and I appreciate that relationship. And I think they've done a good job for us. I think it's huge that they are Nunda Township. They're a Nunda Township business. They're right here. Whenever I've had to call for anything, boy, they get it done. And isn't that what we should get from our vendor? So I'm in favor of extending the contract, and I'll tell you flat out, I would like to add these additional things and come to some concession for these additional, on either the CPI or the percentage.
Before you make a motion, I would like to.
Well, we're not going to vote, right?
Okay,
We're gonna
alright,
discuss
I
a
want
lot.
to make sure, we've been in situations before we can actually get the full discussion out, the motion's been made.
No, we're gonna discuss.
Alright, well, I'm glad there's people here to hear this, because this happened before where people have been appointed, we didn't get to discuss things. That said, I'm very thankful you guys came tonight, and I'm sorry that there's an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is we have an animal here that's, with the current rate at Plan A for 4 years, you're talking $3.528 million just in Plan A over the 4-year contract. We have 4,148 homes of constituents that we owe a duty of. And I heard Mr. Bowles say today that we're locking them in to a price that they may or may not agree to. And I'm sorry to say this, the elephant in the room is the competitive bidding process. I live in downtown Crystal Lake. You guys are looking at me like you don't want to hear this, but I have with me right now, and I've been waiting on this because when the last time you guys were here, Vaughn, you made your presentation, I was walking out the door and somebody asked me in this room about renewing this contract, and I said, absolutely not. And you guys were within earshot, and it was a very uncomfortable conversation for myself. It's uncomfortable for myself too, because I don't even get the utility of this garbage program, but I'll tell you what I do get utility of is the competitive bidding process. And we have not seen a drop in the level of our service from the time we had our original waste hauler to Prairie Land taking over. And I haven't been home, Bill, to see it firsthand on how the truck is compartmentalized, but you're correct that both things go on that truck. There's somehow, some way, and probably Butch sees it more than I do around the city of Crystal Lake, somehow, some way they keep it separate. That said, I have a copy of City of Crystal Lake's letter they sent out when we switched over May 1st on what the competitive bidding process did for us, and it saved us 27% on a single-family home on a competitive bid.
What is the cost to a single-family home in Crystal Lake?
$23.13, but with that, we get a couple of electronics pickups that are basically, we were informed they're coming, curbside. There's more to that. I'm gonna give you guys these. I have one for each of you. If you wanna pass that down. This is for you. Anyway, this was essentially, go ahead and pass it down, please. Sir. Mr. Puma also lives in downtown Crystal Lake, so he got to reap the benefits of this. Is it read out one? Joni, you want one?
Yeah.
I'll even give one out to you guys. I've got a couple extra copies. You guys want them? I basically highlighted what our savings were, how we came about with that. I'm gonna tell you right now, I do not wanna vote to approve this. I think you guys have done a phenomenal job. I think your service speaks for itself. I think you guys are great guys. But the problem being is, I owe it to the people that voted for me and their neighbors and maybe people that didn't vote for me that I can't say yes to this. This is $3.528 million over 4 years. I just can't let it go through without putting it out there for other people. This may come back to bite me in the butt, but unfortunately, I can't say yes to it. So, you know, really, when it comes down to it, there's a 3-2 vote in this room, usually, not all the time. I'm sorry, gentlemen, I can't say yes to this. And I owe it to the people outside of this room, in this room. I can't say yes. We have 6 more months to the life of this contract, and I would love to see it go out for bid.
I'd like to make amendment to the motion that we table it.
Look, our attorney wants to speak.
If I could just address that point, there's a provision in the existing contract, and forgive me, but I'm gonna read it rather than try to interpret for you. We can talk about the meaning, but it says the initial term of this agreement shall be 4 years, commencing with service on May 1, 2015, and ending on April 30, 2019. Commencing not less than 180 days prior to the expiration of the agreement, the township and the contractor shall, engage in good faith negotiations to determine if they can reach agreement to extend the term of this agreement. Among the factors to be considered shall be increased or decreased costs incurred by the contractor, increases in the contractor's productivity, the contractor's service since the beginning of the agreement, and prices paid in comparable communities. In the event that township and contractor are unable to agree on the terms and conditions, including but not limited to the rates to be charged by the contractor that are to be applicable during the extension term, then either party may terminate this agreement by giving notice of the termination to the other party no later than 60 days before the scheduled termination date. So in terms of what that means to the process, we're more than 180 days out right now, so we've started that conversation. That's in accordance with what this contract says. What the contract commits the township to do for the time being is to have good faith negotiations to see if they can extend the term of this agreement and looking at all those questions in terms of prices and productivity. And so, and then if after that good faith negotiation, the parties are unable to enter into an extension of this agreement, then the township could give notice of termination. They need to do that before 60 days prior to the termination date, and then only then could you then begin a public bidding process or negotiation with some other contractor.
So, just to make sure that I understand this correctly.
Sure.
And we go through good faith negotiations.
Right.
To go out for bid, we have to terminate this contract, and then you could go out for competitive bidding, and Waste Management could bid the same, higher,
Correct.
lower, decline to bid, or what?
Agreed, yes. Yeah.
When does the contract terminate?
April 30th.
What is the
May
typical
1st,
length of time for a competitive bidding process on a
So you can't-
contract
you
of
can't-
this scope?
You have to publish it, you have to have it,
Well, not even published, I can contact every, as I did last time, every
Are
carrier
you
out
saying the
there.
residents would
Without
be without service?
notice.
No, you have to
But
give
how long
notice
does
at
it take?
least 60 days before that you're terminating, and at that point, before that, once you give the termination notice, you can do a competitive bid.
okay,
At least 60, so it could be before the 60.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I mean, what I'd recommend is that, if that's the direction you're headed, then you'd wanna try and wrap those good faith negotiations up as quickly as possible. And then determine, if you're unable to come to an agreement at that point, then take that action, so that you give yourself enough time to do whatever process it is that you decide to do.
Cindy, can I ask you a question? So you're in Holiday Hills, or Philip Powell. Okay, so part of Nunda, do you have waste management? I mean,
You're part of this contract.
you're part of this contract, your subdivisions don't have their own private garbage service, so I also am part of this contract. And even if you give the max increase with waste management, I am still going to be paying less than I was paying with my previous garbage company. My only other question and concern, Tim, and I don't know the answer to this, but I see the cost savings here, but I bet there's just, it's a much denser population where you guys are getting picked up than our 41, 48. You know, we're very much more spread out. I don't know if we could actually realize those kind of savings in our
But this
unincorporated
is the same
areas.
densities, we're looking at two prices, they're the same pool of people, the discount.
Yeah, but when you look at the services that we're getting added on to that, it's like within $1. I mean, it looks like Prairie Land's maybe $1 more when you add all the things together, that the people unincorporated are getting. And I'm kinda unique, I have waste management service, and I have a commercial dumpster from Drew. And I've had the good fortune of my neighbors poaching my dumpster, throwing in big screen TVs. You know, I come home, my dumpster's full of roofing material, and it's pretty easy to figure out. You drive around the subdivision, find the roof that has poly tarp on it, I knock on my neighbor's door. I've had all this stuff going on, and for $1.50 a month, and, I mean, that's just me, there's gotta be, in the 4,500 people, 100 other me's, you know, that are getting stuck, or it's dumped in the ditch, or it's left up here, or just thrown out. I mean, to me, the $1 or $2 a month to be able to call and have somebody come pick it up is brilliant. I think that's awesome.
Well, Rob, you keyed on something earlier. How many bags of leaves do you do?
150.
At how much per bag?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know what bags cost.
I'm just saying collection wise.
Well, but there's some cost in the bags themselves. There's cost in your time to put the bags there. So, and the leaf vacuuming is really that's the big service that most residents have come to rely on, and I don't think we can change that.
If you eliminate that, you're gonna have a lot more leaf burning.
Well, you determine that by your request for pricing when
Right.
you go out to bid.
Right.
If they don't offer leaf vacuuming, they can't bid,
Right. Well,
or they're not a qualified bidder.
well, I can tell you, and it may have changed, but 4 years ago, the only companies that could have provided that service truly was Waste Management and Root. Prairie Land was not equipped to do so, Lakes was not equipped to do so. And in fact,
That's included.
I think, Chris, you probably can answer this. How many trucks do you have going? I thought once you told me that sometimes you had as many as 5 trucks,
Or that's in that
5
$30
vacuuming trucks.
We have 3 in the you know, Nunda,
Right.
yes, at any given time, for the leaf bags.
I thought you had told me one year that you had so many leaves and covered bridge.
Oh, and covered bridge, yes, towards the end of the year, we have 5 trucks there, sometimes 6. We sometimes might have to bring some from Antioch to help us.
One, I think, per year.
One of the things that, from where I'm sitting, Waste Management's done for us is we've had some special projects. Like the county gave us a property that had an old house on it,
Right.
and it
Give them
was
more
Some of you
8
guys are,
I don't think everybody's hearing you.
Oh, just states not fees.
Right.
Sorry.
We tore down a house, on a piece of property in Bayview Beach that the county gave us because it was abandoned and condemned and the taxes weren't paid and, they wanted, there was a lot of complaints. So we tore the house down and Waste Management gave us 8 dumpsters. They provided them, they dumped, we got no bill, so that was pretty. It was nice. We've had a couple other projects like that too, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what they were, but we don't get bills. It's nice,
It's like $2,500.
for 8 dumpsters.
well,
I'm not questioning the services that are provided, my issue is changing it to a different CPI.
Well,
It's a bigger
I
burden
oppose,
on the,
I oppose that.
I think,
We should
I'd rather see
negotiate.
this stuff in a chart form and see where the CPI has gone. I mean, it's all been dumped on us, to figure this out and do all the math quickly, and luckily Justin has a calculator, because my math was getting a little bad, and I got up at $1 million mark.
Can I?
But, I'm not, they were the lowest responsible bidder when you guys went out to bid, but the problem is, how do we control the increased cost of the residents? I mean, right now, we're looking at putting $1.35 on just for additional stipend that maybe every resident doesn't want, let alone increasing the CPI beyond.
To me, it's
What
no
we believe is
different than your
standard.
cable TV. They keep adding fees to your cable TV bill where it becomes,
Right.
you can't afford it anymore, so you cancel it.
Right.
Bottom line is, believe me, I have no problem with the services that Waste Management is. It's the point of, everybody looks at it and says, well, we know they're gonna increase 2%, 3%, whatever you decide on, they're gonna increase it 3%, because they're gonna take the maximum.
Right.
You know, they're not gonna they're gonna take the maximum. It's not, because they're paying more to get rid of the recyclables, that's part of their business, you know, they were making, $100 million on it, if you just have a figure. They were making now they're not making that anymore, so they're losing money.
Well,
So they have to stay in business, I understand.
But, Bill, I do have to say, they have taken what was in the contract, they haven't taken more than that.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Just wanted to
Again,
make sure.
when you start adding these fees, how are you gonna explain that to people? That, okay, now we're adding another $1.50 a month on top of the $2 we're gonna add, so now it's $3.50, and I know, Ms. Tynes said she went down in price. Well, she was at the higher scale. I was on the low scale and I went up, but nowhere near what you came down. You dropped, let's just say you dropped $100, I went up $3, but it was great for you. You saved $100, I got to pay more. Still getting basically the same services. I mean, if you add, I don't rake my leaves to the curb, I don't utilize that service. Others in my neighborhood do. That's great. But it's different for everybody. It's just the most difficult part here is getting past the point of what I think I hear the most about waste management. Well, they just raise the prices. They just keep raising the prices. It's not, you know, I understand why they do it, but it's other people that don't understand it. And the education part of this has to start in kindergarten, you know.
Well,
You have to start educating at kindergarten level to get in, when they're 25 years old, in 20 years, that they'll know, well, we don't put garbage in the recycling bin. So this is a long-term fix on this.
Well, I will say, because I received the phone calls, and when the rates go up, I receive, I'm gonna say between, I don't know, 10 and 20 phone calls. The rates went up.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. And there, people will say, they went up 50%. No, they didn't. They went up 2%. And when they go back and look at the bill, they're like, oh, okay. And a few people are upset by the 2%. We don't get, you know, if I get 20 calls, that would be probably way on the high side. Out of 40, almost 4,200 residents, that's not too bad. I can tell you the at-the-door service, as I said earlier, I'm kind of on the fence there. I think we'd have some people going ballistic because it's gonna increase their rates. And I think we'd have some people that would just absolutely love it.
So I have a
I don't know
question
the answer
regarding
there.
that, for Vaughn, I have a question regarding that. So say, I mean, because these are two separate issues for us, it's, first of all, approving your contract extension, and then the second vote for us would be whether or not we do this at your door special collection. Is this offer, this at your door special collection option only available to us at the beginning of this contract? I mean, this is a new service, I've never heard anything about it, no, our residents don't know anything about it. So if say we renewed your contract extension, is this something we could table for another year until we can gauge what kind of interest there is within the township? Or is this a one-time, we have to decide right now, and if we decide no, we don't get it for 4 years?
Great question.
That's
Ideally,
kind
we'd
of
like,
more of a question for our attorney.
actually, ideally, we'd like to tie it in with our contract, but it is something that we have added after a year. And so, yes, we can do that, for sure. And,
That's a good question.
and again, that's the point you made too, and I just wanna stress, and you are looking at two different things. Two separate things, I should say. One is just the contract, with several added, services as well as our request. I think if you look at our request at the WST, at the last time I looked at it, the last 12-month rolling average for WST was 3.2, so I think it went up to about 21.67, so it went up 67 cents.
Now, we could, excuse me, we could also decide to renew the contract as is.
That doesn't mean he's gonna accept.
Well, that's true, it's true.
There you go.
But I mean, without any of the additional
Not the addition, right?
items on there.
Is there a possibility of a different price point for that, special at-home pickup if it was optional? Like, could it be $2 if it wasn't everybody?
Well, we have a set fee, and the set fee is set, we keep it low because we ask all the residents to participate. Now, if it's something you don't want, we still have the curbside electronics pickup that is currently in place, and we were going to reduce that rate for you guys $10. So, in all our communities, that we have signed up, it's that rate for all residents. So, to your question, no, it's not an option, and,
So that's your global price
That's-
in contract.
And I just wanna, say, Mr. Parrish, thank you for your comments, I appreciate and respect your opinion. Just gotta be careful when you compare communities and services and contracts, so that you are comparing apples to apples, because there are differences. For example, as you know, and everyone's talked about it, Nunda has leaf service, leaf vac, Crystal Lake does not. I think, you guys also have maybe construction pickup, you're allowed up to a certain amount of construction per year. Crystal Lake does not, you have to call in for a special pickup. So, those are types of things you really have to look at, the details of the contract. And again, I just feel one of the things that we pride ourselves on, and I'll get back, I said it a couple times, for service or safety. We've done a few things, for the township. We don't talk about it, but it's just something that we do as a trusted community partner. So, we wanna keep your business. I guess that's you timed me, right? You said no.
No, I thought I turned it off, so I'm like, where is it going?
We wanna keep working with you in this partnership to service your residents, and, we just feel we have a nice, offer in front of you. So, very fair offer.
Well, personally, I would like to see us negotiate this contract and continue it. I don't have an opinion on the at the door. I don't know if it's good or not for our residents, and I like the idea of, Karen's idea of possibly take a better poll of what our residents might need in that regard.
Well, I personally like that option, but I can see,
Well, I mean,
Why
I
other
could see
people
that
would
I
not.
would use it, but, I take all my recycling to my.
because you come here every day.
No, but I would use that, and I think the TV recycling, you'd see a lot of TVs initially. I think that would, but, is that for the first year or two, and then suddenly that subsides, and then is that a worthwhile expense? And I don't know that.
Yeah.
We need to make a motion to table this. I'd like to make a motion to table this at least
I've
until
already
next.
asked for that, I asked the motion to be amended, and that was gonna be my question before you get involved, and to the attorney, is I asked for the motion to be amended to table it. And I thought that would have to be decided on right then and there before we went any farther.
Yeah, we need to table this right now. This isn't gonna happen tonight. If it is, I'm
Yeah,
saying
we
no
have to
right
talk
now.
We have to talk to residents. I mean,
Yeah.
Again, I would like to make a motion to table this or take Rob's original motion.
What was your original motion?
Basically,
wait, the
second
attorney, I
his
asked if
motion.
we could,
Yeah.
I asked to amend the original motion to table this.
I'll second it.
Would we need to
So
vote
who's
on
got
the
a second?
first motion?
No.
Okay, so hold on a second, this gets
I'm sorry, John.
hairy for me.
Okay, so give me the motion.
Wait a minute,
There's the second.
no, back up, because we already have one on there.
Right, there, but before you vote on that, he's asked to table it. That would be the one that you vote on first.
Okay, wait, so before we vote on that, can I ask another question?
To me, or what?
Well,
Sure.
well, first I'm asking if I'm allowed, and then, So what
Where's the motion stand?
do you think will happen if we table it?
This one does
Like,
fail.
I'm hoping we can come back next month.
We're going to this-
If Lee's
this is
okay with
where
that,
we'll
I mean, we have a window of
I'm
a
sorry.
couple
It's
months
okay.
here, but before our 60 days is up, but I, you know, I'm sorry that these guys had to come here to hear all this. This should have been discussion before we, you know, it shouldn't have been a line item as discussion and approval. It should have been a line item for discussion only, not approval.
Well, you can
Right, my thoughts
approve
by
or
amending it
disapprove.
is we would push it to new business again next month, and then it would be a new discussion again. And then by that time, the people that would wanna research this have the opportunity to research it.
well, I guess we can research it by asking, you know, some of our residents what their opinion is, but we don't have any other price point to compare it to.
Correct.
to
That's
give-
all I want.
Okay, is it, to ask if they're happy and,
Yeah.
okay.
Where your price was, I mean, I'm only getting information from Mr. Bowles and Cindy and
Well,
what
and
you were bringing in.
I know, I have quite a few senior neighbors that I'm not sure know that they had a senior discount, which I would like to share with them.
Did they have to request the senior discount?
When,
Or did they, I mean, is the list like somehow,
When we started, these were sent out to everybody, and it's also on that website that I shared with you, so they can, a lot of times seniors don't go on the website.
I know, that's what I was gonna say.
These, Lee, I think you still have some of these, so it's in there as well, so.
and as we get, if we know of new residents that move in, get either mail these or give them to new residents.
Currently, just for your information, we have about 450 seniors on Plan C.
On that,
Let me know whenever you're ready.
So the vote is on the motion to table.
To table.
Correct.
How many residents are in Plan B, if you don't mind me asking?
Plan B, 165.
At one point, we talked about what your average cost across the plan.
The average cost for the entire plan right now, if you take all the plans together, you're at $20.63.
That's on all 41, 48 homes?
Yes. So in other words, if you took
It's just
all the
the average,
homes
yeah.
based on the different plans that they're on at the different rates, that's the blended rate.
And you're looking to add $1.35 to all the residents on your at-door service?
Correct. If that's something the board, you know, holds to.
but we can vote no on that service.
Correct.
And we can also ask that we might have the option to do it mid-contract.
Right, there's too much information for me here to say yes or no right now, and that's why I asked for the motion be amended to table it, with the understanding that this would come before us again in new business next month.
Well,
Every old business.
I would say that we put it on similarly as it is, so that if we, at some point, we have to decide to go out to bid or not.
Correct.
So we put it on as a motion to either approve or not approve. If you know what I mean.
If
it
we
goes-
terminate-
If we keep putting it under old business, then pretty soon we're past the point where we even haven't acted in good faith.
Right.
So,
I'm not doing this in order to find a reason to get rid of waste management, I'm looking to validate the continuation of their contract. That's why I can't do that in good faith right now, sitting here saying it's gonna be tied to WST and it's, you know, we're gonna do this additional. I mean, it doesn't affect me, but it affects the people that ask me to look into stuff like this. That's why I'm asking for it to just be kicked a month to talk about it again.
is there any other, before we go on to that motion though, I think, could I ask, is there any other discussion?
Question.
Are you okay with that, Rob?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I want it all out. I'm
Okay.
literally on the table here and.
Right.
Let's
And
figure it out.
I am unincorporated. I love your service. If they, and this is just a hypothetical, but I wanna have all the information before I make a decision. So say we actually made the motion to terminate, which is not really the way I'm leaning, but, that would mean then we'd go back out to bid. If that is what we decided, would you still rebid with the same numbers that you were coming in with right now? Or would you just not rebid us at all?
It doesn't work that way.
Well, I thought I could try. Well, no, I mean, are you not interested?
When you bid lower.
How many times do you get to
I
rebid
do,
back?
yeah. No, but I mean, would you just not rebid us at all?
I don't think that would be possible. I think we would do this.
Okay, I just don't wanna burn a bridge.
But when you're asking
Yeah,
about.
I know, but it's worth a shot.
Be careful, when you're asking about amounts, remember you're talking about sealed documents, not something that you're going to ask in a
But I
public
don't
meeting.
wanna, because of the service that you have provided, I don't wanna lose.
Right.
I
No,
like
mean,
you, I
we've-
just don't
we've
wanna
spent
rule
four-
out seeing other people.
Yeah, exactly.
We've spent the last 4 years working with you on building, you know, this contract and providing good service to your residents. And like when I started out, I said, I feel we've really come a long way and built a good partnership together. And so I can say most definitely, if it were to go out, yeah, we'd be ready. Would the price be the same? I'm not gonna say
I know
yes or
you
no.
can't, but,
So,
are you gonna leave us your cards in case we have questions?
that's one of the things I was gonna say. If you have questions, you know, feel free.
Yeah, cause, I mean, I didn't,
Okay. So I call the question then, on the
Well,
amending.
can I ask one more question? One thing that I'm hearing a lot here is that, you know, Nunda Township has all this information, but I will tell you that the education process, in my opinion, should not just be on Nunda Township. And maybe some kind of education can be built into some kind of contract, because if you do agree to this at the door, and people get one flyer one time in the beginning of a 4-year contract, they're not gonna be as apt to do it. The recycling, what you can recycle, what you can't. Well, we had these flyers when we first did the contract 4 years ago. We could put a hanger on the thing. Education means you're at them all the time, and I don't believe it's the responsibility of Nunda Township to do the educating. It's the responsibility of Waste. Having the service in incorporated, I can say, I haven't seen or heard a lot of this stuff in 4 years.
I would say it's actually a team effort because ultimately it's the residents that need to change, so it is township responsibility as well as ours to work together to get it done. And that's why, you know, any newsletter that goes out, we got card hangers, we got events that we, you know, Chris and I have been at, any type of opportunity we have to educate the residents, we're trying to do that.
Right, but in all due respect.
It is difficult.
Nunda Township is not making any money on having Nunda Township, having Waste Management as their hauler, so it's hard for them to then expend money on education. So, you know, I'm just saying as a person using it, I would like a lot more of this information, whether it's in my mail, whether it's on a robocall, something to educate people more, if that's your ultimate goal.
All right. I should say, I called the question, so we have to vote on it, but we got to hear from Cindy one more time.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
To table this for 1 month. Right?
yes.
For a duration of a month,
For a
the next
duration of a
meeting, and
month.
we'll discuss it again. By that time, hopefully, we have a lot more information absorbed individually, and
Okay, that would be fine.
Thank you.
I am, however, Rob, I would be putting it on as the same type of line item, so.
That's fine.
If we
That's
decided to approve it, we
Right.
could.
right.
That's the. whole
Unfortunately,
point.
that's how it should have been today. It should have been discussion, and then it should have been
Well,
pushed to it.
but it's both, because we could just discuss it and say, let's vote on it.
Okay.
And we could be
That-
done.
Okay, the opportunity was there to do it.
It should just be roll call or.
Yeah, I do.
It's a roll call.
Justin Bronski? Here?
You sure? Kind of.
Yeah.
Rob Parrish?
Yes.
Tim Parrish?
Yes.
Karen Tynas? Yes. Lee Jennings?
Yes. Okay, that motion carries. The original motion, we don't have to vote on.
Correct.
Okay. So we will, for those concerned, be putting this on the agenda again next month. And similarly, until we decide yes or no.
Correct.
Okay.
So Vaughn has to come back.
No,
pleasure.
no, it doesn't have to. You know, it'd help
You have
if
to
you
come back.
brought pizza.
I appreciate
though.
you guys being here, though. I'll
Yeah.
tell you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, on to number 12, the reports by the elected officials. All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Let's see. Oh, you know, last month, I believe we handed out the inspection reports for the buildings. And one thing, while there might be lots of little things, the one glaring thing to me is, as I actually put in our budget and talked about earlier in the year, is our roof needs repaired. It really needs to be replaced. We need to get bids on that, and I know we're approaching the end of the season that we preferred. I actually kind of deferred that because of the inspection. So if there's anyone that wants to make recommendations to me, please send me emails or texts on roofing bidders, and or do you have any opinions on that?
Which building again?
This
Yours?
one, this one.
Yours was done already, right?
Mine's been done already.
Yeah.
This one has some patches that have been done. The inspection report reflected that it's time.
What is the material up there?
It's rubber.
It's EDM membrane.
Yes. So that's it for me.
But where is, I didn't, when I went to go look at the bills, I didn't pick up my other packet. Is it up?
I'll get you.
Yeah, Lita had someone with her when I was there, so we,
Okay.
okay, but it's up there.
Yeah.
I didn't even think to ask for
That
it.
was last month, I ended the inspection.
Yes, so I have not seen that.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll get you a copy of that.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually on PDFs, but they're really large, because there's a ton of pictures in it, so.
Well, you could email it to me then if
Well,
you
but
want.
it's gonna be huge, is what I'm saying. I'll print them out for you, make sure. Just, yeah.
I did a lot of them.
And or please look over those too, and if there's other things we need to talk about, bring it to me next month. Or if you wanna talk about it now. That's it for me. Mike, do you have anything?
Just finishing up fighting a minor flood here. We had enough sandbags left over from the July flood. Seems like we get a quarterly flood now.
Holiday floods,
Holiday floods?
Yeah. all the good voting weekends.
Finishing up our paving.
Water's still coming up?
Yeah,
Nope,
it has,
nope,
did it
leveled-
crest?
Yeah, it leveled out today. It didn't go up overnight.
Okay.
We're 3 feet lower than we were in the record flood last year. High enough to flood our lowest residents.
Okay. See, you're putting in a bike path or walkway along Rawson Bridge?
Next year, we'll be resurfacing and restriping Rawson Bridge Road to include a pedestrian path, whatever, your multi-use
Okay.
path on the riverside only,
Okay.
Ready, or?
from the ore to the bridge. The county and the bicycle.
Do we have any risk there?
The bicycles are there already.
Actually, a little bit wider through there would be good too.
The county, P&D, and the bicycle advocates have been lobbying. So,
That is the last place I would ride a bike. So it's around 31, but they do it all the time. Oh, I know.
Anything else?
nope, just plugging away, getting ready for winter.
Thank you. Joni?
I do. I just let everybody know that the annual treasurer's report and the audit they were both filed with the county clerk and the comptroller's office for this year.
Okay. Justin?
Vaughn, thank you for coming in and bringing your crew, presenting this, and, thank you everybody else for the comments. There was some interesting stuff, so I definitely have a couple of things that, I like it, but I do have a couple of things that I'll do some homework over the next month, so that I'm sure about
saying I'm not here to discredit waste management, I'm here to keep it moving. Just wanna hear from the residents and look at what the true costs are, simply because I wasn't here when Mr. Bowles and the rest of them initially put it in. So, and then, I got a question for Mike. Yesterday didn't seem that good of a day to be digging alongside a river and 90% chance of rain. I didn't know you were there. I had two people call me and say, "What the heck are they doing in the pouring rain digging next to a river that's coming up?" You can push it off on whatever foreman or whatever. But
No,
I
it's
was really
my-
surprised when they told me what you were doing. I was like,
Yeah, that's, you know, it turned out fine, it worked out fine. Look, if the river was coming up another foot, it would have been a nightmare. But that's a project I've been trying to get to all summer,
right.
and
It was funny, it was another paving contractor, he's like, he's on the downhill side on super elevation, he says, all the water's going in the ditch and they're still digging. I don't know, I'm about to take a look.
yeah, well, we're a little aggressive.
Yeah.
We're trying to get it all done, and it will turn out nice, and we're no worse for the wear. It's finished for this year. All we have left is to bring home the roller.
That's it for me.
Tim?
I just wanna thank Vaughn again for coming. I wanna tell you, I too am not here to knock waste management down. You guys have an impressive track record. Your coverage is amazing. I just have to look at something that we've inherited. I wasn't a part of the original 4-year agreement. You know, that said, I'm a couple years into this and I need to take a look at things. Hearing Mr. Bowles from the back room say that he needed some help, it empowered me as well. I just, you know, you have to look at these things for the people that voted us in, so that's really my whole entire motive. And it has nothing to do personally with what you guys bring to Nunda, how you help Nunda evolve with their services over the years. Obviously, you've brought them up to speed and there's some more learning to do, but, you know, according to what Mrs. White has said, you know, with education, but in no way do I wanna take away from what you guys bring. So I thank you for that, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
I will second that as well. And then, just my apologies for missing last month. It was unexpected and last minute. Otherwise I would have given advance notice, but I didn't have any. And if I could just get a copy of that report, and is that gonna be back on the agenda? That inspection report, I mean,
Well, we can talk about it
as old business,
Sure.
okay.
But
So no, it was just handed out at the
I
last
mean,
meeting.
it was handed out, and truthfully, if the board thinks there's certain things that we need to act on quickly and we have it in our budget, just call me and let's talk about it individually or at a board meeting. It doesn't have to be at the board meeting. But I think the roof needs to be addressed, that's the, to me,
I think
that's.
we should address that next meeting here, maybe prioritize some of the things that the rest of us all believe to be the priorities.
Right.
And then let's move forward, we understand roof is
Was it-
top notch, but let's look at some of the other stuff that's going on with the drainage issues and stuff like that to get those all
By all
at the same
means,
time.
but, you know, give me some recommendations. I don't wanna sit there and say, oh, God, wish we.
Guess what Rob's thinking, guess what Tim's thinking,
Yeah,
guess what.
wish we
John's
were
thinking.
replacing the roof.
Yeah, I can call and ask, I can look
Yeah,
at it. It'll be in my packet.
Okay, any new business to bring in front of the board? Seeing none, any old business? Kind of discussed the inspection report.
Oh, sorry, I was out of turn.
No,
Don't worry.
we kind of, I threw it out there. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn? And a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. Done.
Can you hand me one of those?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No.
Not yet. I'm gonna get this later. Besides,
Yes, yes.
You have that?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Did you do the tennis ball thing?
Frozen water bottle.
I had to go get a steroid shot finally. Yeah, which I'm not gonna lie, is incredibly painful.
No, motion to table.
It's just cause it's kind of burnt when it's going in, but after that shot, it was gone and it didn't come back.
Really?
Yes.
Twice a week.
Yeah, I did, and then the other thing was,
No, don't be sorry. That's a good
oh,
question.
there.